I've heard that.
And because of that, in the last decade, beliefs in witches, ghosts, and haunted houses have increased. Now, that brings to mind the impact of technology and how much that is being spread out there. And children who otherwise wouldn't have had access to any of that because we didn't talk about it in the houses now are free to get information like that over the internet. And then there's I've met several people just here in Las Vegas, by the way, who have come in and said that they're witches or warlocks.
Warlocks? Yeah. Yep.
What?
Now, had you heard this one, Mr. Means? If you walk under a ladder, then in order to counteract that bad luck, you should place your thumb between your index and middle finger and hold it for 5 seconds.
What?
Okay, no.
I never heard that ever.
Yeah, see, now even with this superstitious belief, they even have a remedy for you.
To reverse it.
That's right. And of course, opening an umbrella inside.
Yes, indeed.
Now, I've heard of that one.
Again, is that a ritual or is that a superstition?
That's a superstition. Yeah, that's a superstition, definitely.
So where would belief in ghosts fall? Because they have certain things, like if you place a mirror a certain way in your house, then it's a portal for spirits, and sage and stuff like if you sage your house, it'll balance out the energies. Where does stuff like that fall? Is that more like spirituality?
Yeah, it's magical thinking.
Magical thinking?
Yeah, it's magical thinking that exists and the concern that I would have is that it's phobic in nature, so it's a superstition that causes a lot of anxiety for people, and there is no, it's an irrational belief.
I don't know.
Yeah, right. I was going to ask, have you ever seen a ghost?
Okay, so see, now I'm about to open up to my listeners.
Please do.
So, okay. Now, my dad knows this, so I really want to see how he's going to chime in on this situation, because he's Mr. Straight Up and debunk this and debunk that, but he has seen some of these experiences. So, my mom and I have both had this weird thing growing up where when I was little, I had imaginary friends, but when I would go certain places, I would actually see other people that were not there. So that was one thing. I've also had several... Okay, seriously? Can we be serious for just 3 seconds? I've also had several incidents where, for example, I had an aunt that I was very, 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 very close to. And she lived in Maryland, but as you guys know, we reside in Vegas. And she actually passed away suddenly a couple of years ago by a stroke. And the night that she passed away, I woke straight up out of my sleep with a headache. And I called my mom in the room because I felt so uneasy. It's not like me to wake up in the middle of the night. And I was just saying, my head is pounding. I don't know why. And then it went away. And then when I went to sleep, I had a dream that I was sitting with my aunt in the kitchen, and we were catching up on life. And I asked her the next time I was going to see her, and she said something like, you won't see me when you wake up, but you can always see me like this, something like that. And she flew away into gold dust. And when I woke up, I found out that she had passed, and at the exact time when she passed, that was the exact time when I woke up with the headache. And the second time I had a scary experience, and this is when my dad was actually in the room. My grandmother had dementia, and as she was transitioning on, we went and prayed around her at her hospice. And so we were in there with a priest. It was me, my dad, and my uncle. We were all praying around her. And I remember I turned to my dad, and Dad, you were there, so please attest to this. I turned to my dad, and I was like, she's watching us pray with her. Like, she's standing at the end of her bed watching us pray with her. Like, she's already transitioned on. And my dad, like, I was trying to get his attention and tell him that. And at the exact moment when I said it, out of nowhere, she had a spasm. Like, she had been laying there all day, eyes closed. Basically, you know, at this point, she's on life support. We're praying over her. She's transitioning, or in the physical sense. But she had a spasm and sat straight up. And when she sat straight up, I saw her, like, standing up, looking at her body do that at the end of her bed. And I was so spooked by it. And I looked directly at my dad, and he was already looking at me. And I had to get out of there because I cannot explain that any other way. Like, I wish I could tell you I was lying. I wish I could tell you, you know, I read it on Google somewhere, but I've always had experiences like that since I was little. Even when we moved into this house in Vegas, when we first got here, maybe the second week we were living here, I told my mom that I had a dream that this little girl was running around our house, and she swung on our chandelier and pushed herself off of the glass that's above our door. And my mom woke me up the next morning and said that there were handprints on the glass. And there's no way to explain stuff like that. So I don't know if I could personally say things like that don't exist, because I've always been a believer in energies, and I've always believed that, you know, there's a process between mind and spirit when we transition and stuff like that. And I know it can be a little bit taboo, and a lot of people think it's hocus pocus, but personally, I've felt it, I've seen it. So I don't know how else to explain. Okay, so you're really gonna do that like you weren't there? No, I'm serious.
I believe you.
Dad.
Yeah.
Like, you are not the chief anymore. Like, you are not about to sit here and make me look crazy on the podcast. Like, do you not remember that with Grandma?
Until he wakes up the night free.
Right.
That's right.
So, can you please tell the people about Grandma? Because you were there.
No, you know, it's interesting because I recall just before my father passed, the night that he passed, I remember having the same situation. I woke up in the middle of the night, you know, because he was sick and in the hospital, and of course it was kind of sudden that he passed away because we didn't think he was quite that ill. But, you know, same thing. I kind of sat up in the bed, and I too remember that, and I shared this with Ambezi, my wife, was that I remember a couple nights later I was having a dream, and he appeared in this house that just had nothing but paneling in it, and we're trying to make our way through the house, and he had on a yellow suit, I'll never forget, and he was just smiling, and I'm talking to him, he's not talking back to me. And I said, hey, you know, come on back so we can do something or other. And he looked at me and said, well, you know, I can't do that. Then he walked off in another direction, and then I woke up. So, you know, these things, it's interesting when you start having these dreams and what, I don't know what you call them in your world, but
like, aside from dreams, do you not remember the situation with Grandma?
I remember.
Okay, I just need you to clarify that because right. He was really about to let me be out here looking crazy. That's crazy. I'm over here opening up to our listeners. We got an expert on the phone, and he's probably like, oh, she crazy.
Well, again, this is a topic that could do a standalone show on
definitely
dreams and the impact of us seeing some things that defy belief with other people. I mean, we all have those kinds of experiences, and so
Right.
Certainly that's something we acknowledge it at this point, but they're not superstitions, is what I'm saying.
So I think to tie it together, I think that when it comes to superstitions, maybe a part of the reason why people create these superstitions like mirrors breaking and stuff like that is because maybe it could be they have their own experience where like they could have their own experience, like their own unexplainable experience that causes them to think that maybe because I did this, that happened. Like
a lot of times it's control. It's the locus of control. That's a contributing factor for whether or not we're superstitious. If you have internal locus of control, you believe that you're in charge of everything, that you're the master of your fate generally, and that you can make things happen. If you have an external locus of control, you sort of are buffeted by life and things happen to you instead of the other way around. So people who have an external locus of control are more likely to be superstitious, possibly as a way of getting power over their lives.
So
almost like instead of accepting responsibility for certain things, they would rather blame it on, oh, it's because I stepped on a crack. It's because I didn't throw the salt or something like that.
So
in some people, certainly, but for others, it's a way of explaining why they don't have the powers.
Gotcha.
Powers, outside of them.
Interesting.
well, from a psychological point of view, when is there a borderline between you need professional help
Oh, yeah.
and you're just overly superstitious, if you will? You know, for example,
Like when it turns into phobias.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. For example, if I absolutely refuse to go to work on Friday because my green socks, I can't find them. Now, where do you strike that balance from a psychological perspective? Because it's like I'm not going out. There's no.
When you believe in things you don't understand,
that you suffer.
that's kind of where I go with it. But on the reality is, most of the superstitions that people engage in are perfectly fine. They're not pathological.
Oh, is that really?
So,
Interesting.
so that's a lot of it is urban legend. A lot of it comes from us. It's passed down. If you experience anxiety, tension, excessive worry because of these trouble sleeping, obsessive thoughts, exhaustion, these are, or if you find that you have a repetitive visualized piece that's out of control, superstition or not, you need to get at least some professional help, see a doctor or a therapist.
Okay.
When this goes off the Richter scale, if you will, the key is paying attention to your own thinking.
So,
Particularly if you have any of those symptoms.
well, how do we get into that dependence on these things, Mr. Means? For example, how do we become so dependent on wearing that blue tie every Friday, or before I take a quiz in my science class, I have to have my sock rolled halfway down my leg or something like that? How do we get to that point?
We believe that it gives us more control. Understand that this is about control over the situations.
Okay.
So if I wear the blue shirt, chances are that I'm going to have better, especially job interviews, testing, and other situations that we want to go well, regardless of our own experience or our own preparation. They certainly can spur those superstitious thoughts. Okay, we're often in situations in life where something really important is about to happen. We try to prepare for it as best we can.
Sure.
But